A few years ago, we were hosting some family at our house for 4th of July. My wife and I live in a house that's in what I would describe as a nice neighborhood. We know most of the neighbors and they're good people. It's a great place to live overall. And that's one of the reasons that we like to have people over and host some of the events. On 4th of July, we had my brother and his wife, as well as my sister, my parents, and 2 cousins. We had a grill outside and a couple of tables in the yard where most of the people were hanging out because it was a nice day. But we also had some food inside as well, and people were going back and forth. The 4th of July party started in the early afternoon. At one point, a couple of hours in, pretty much everybody was outside. Our house is on a corner, so we sort of have 2 front yards in a way, if that makes sense. One is really a side yard, but it's also fairly large and is connected to the street. The backyard is fenced in, but the front area is not. So I went into the house and into the kitchen. I was washing my hands at the sink, and there's a window right there looking out to the side yard. At that point, most of the people were in the front yard, but my brother was there in the side yard getting another drink. At that point, I remember noticing this random guy walking into the side yard from the street. I had no idea who he was or where he had come from. He approached my brother and then started talking to him. The windows were closed and the air conditioning was on, so I couldn't hear what was said. The man was holding what looked like a small toolbox in one hand. Within a few seconds, he and my brother started walking around to the back side of the house. I decided to go out and see what was going on, so I left out the front. I went around through the side yard and then around back, but by the time I got there, my brother was returning without the man. I asked him who that guy was that he was with. My brother said it was my neighbor and he was stopping by to return my tools. I asked if he was gone. My brother said no, the guy had gone into the basement to return the tools. I told my brother that that guy was not my neighbor and I didn't lend tools to anybody. My brother suddenly had a look of shock on his face and then said that the man was inside my house. He had let him in the back door, which had stairs leading down to the basement right by. So at that point, we both ran to the back door and went inside. When we got in, the man was nowhere in sight. The door to the basement was closed and I opened it. All the lights were off down there. I called down asking if anybody was there, but we got no response. We didn't have any kind of weapons or anything on us in the moment, and I didn't think to get one either. I turned on a light to the basement, which wasn't very bright, but better than nothing. Then we both walked down the stairs. When we got down there, the basement, which was unfinished, appeared mostly empty. It was some old furniture and boxes scattered around. There were also some shelves and things like that. We started looking around, not saying a word. I was pretty nervous. After both of us looking around for maybe a minute or two, we had still seen nothing. But then we heard a noise coming from one wall. I looked over just in time to see a shelf being pushed over. The man was behind it. Several things fell off the shelf in front of me and I moved back just in time. The shelf tipped over completely and still hit me and grazed my brother, but it could have been a lot worse. It could have completely crushed us. As we were getting out of the way, the man moved out and started running. He ran to the stairs and then went back up. We got up to our feet and ran after him. The man then left the house. We ran after him in case he went around front, but instead he went to the street and quickly disappeared. We ended up calling the cops and moved the 4th of July party to inside the house. The cops searched the area looking for the guy but couldn't find him. I'm still not sure who he was or why he went to our house. Was he someone who lived nearby? I know all the neighbors in the immediate area, and he wasn't one of them. But overall, the neighborhood is very large. I haven't seen the guy since, and I'm hoping that I never do again. This happened back when I was a kid. I think I was maybe 10 years old, and it was a long time ago. So I lived with my parents in a pretty busy neighborhood. Most of the houses were not that big, but there were quite a few of them on the street. I remember that on the 4th of July, I went to my aunt and uncle's house with my parents, and then we went back home at night. My best friend Emma lived in the neighborhood a few blocks away. She told me that her family were doing some fireworks that night and invited me to come over. My parents knew this, so that night I walked over to her house. When I got there, she had a bunch of her family over and they were shooting off fireworks and stuff. I stayed there for a while until things died down. Then I left to walk back home. Now, I'm not sure what time it was by then, but I think it was getting late. Even for the 4th of July, the streets were pretty quiet. I was walking on the sidewalk, and a couple of minutes in, this dark four-door sedan started to drive by. But it didn't pass me, it just started going the same speed that I was walking. and I was not walking super fast, so it struck me as odd right away. I didn't recognize the car, and when I looked over, I couldn't see the driver well enough. So I was suspicious right away, and I walked faster and then turned left at the next block. I remember that the car turned left as well at the street. To get home, I was supposed to keep going straight and not take the left turn. So when I realized the car was turning too, I quickly moved back. When I did, the car started to stop. I ran behind the car and crossed the street, and then got back on track on the sidewalk to go home. The car went forward at first, and I felt better. But as I was walking, I heard the car moving and turned around to see it pulling into a driveway and turning around. I walked faster and knew that it would probably try to catch back up with me. After turning around, the car took a left again and was now on the same street as me. It caught back up with me easily and then started driving at the same rate as me again. It was pretty much a straight shot home at that point until one more turn, which was on my street. I walked, just hoping that the car would go away and not knowing what I should do. The car continued to just drive with me. Then, suddenly, it pulled over to the side of the road slightly ahead of me. The stop was very sudden, and then the driver's door quickly opened. I saw a man starting to emerge. He was about average height and thin. As soon as I saw him getting out, I took off running. I was running in the direction of my house still, and at first he started to run after me. I must have been faster than he expected though or something, because after I made it a good 20 or 30 feet away, he turned around and went back to his car. He got back in and then started driving to catch up with me again. I turned at my street and was running as fast as I could. The guy was still able to keep up with me pretty easily with him being in a car. I could see my house coming up ahead. I just wanted to make it there, but then I noticed something good. My dad was outside in the front yard. This made me feel a ton better. I continued to run, cutting through a neighbor's yard and then into our yard. The car continued slowly down the street. Then, once it was in front of our house, it slowed down and I ran to my dad. At that point, I heard a tire screeching and the car went quickly down the road. I told my dad what happened. He walked into the street after the car, but it was long gone. After that, I never saw the car again. I didn't get a good look at the man at all. I couldn't tell you what he looked like other than a very basic description. But I'm really glad that my dad was outside. This happened 2 years ago on the 4th of July. I have a sister who's older than I am, and she's married with a son who's my nephew. He was 4 years old at the time of this story, and I always like to spend time with him, and he calls me his favorite aunt. I'm also his only aunt, but that's beside the point. So he wanted me to take him to the 4th of July parade in our local city that we live in. It's always a big deal, and it goes down Main Street and a couple of other roads. My sister and her husband live within a walking distance of the parade route, and it took place on the morning of the 4th. So I arrived at my sister's house, and her husband's parents were there visiting. Going to the parade was just me and my nephew, so we left and walked to the parade route. We found a place to sit down along the side of the road on the edge of the neighborhood. The parade started shortly after, and it was a pretty good turnout. My nephew enjoyed it, but at the end, something strange happened. Most of the people in the parade were the typical things that you would see. Towards the end, I remember seeing this clown walking around by himself. It seemed normal at first, but then it kinda didn't. He was just walking around, looking at people, and he seemed a little bit out of place. He was not a 4th of July themed clown either, just a regular clown. When he got close to us, he walked over real slow. Then he walked directly up to me and my nephew. He gave my nephew a high five, and then he went up to me and gave me a hug. It was awkward, and I'm not sure why he did, but I still figured that he was just being a friendly parade clown at that point. He kind of walked off then. After that, I remember about 5 minutes later noticing him again. He was walking back the opposite way of the parade traffic. He appeared to just kind of be wandering around. Soon after, the parade ended. I didn't notice the clown, and the people started leaving. As my nephew and I were now getting ready to leave, though, I noticed the clown once more. He was walking back from far away and heading in our direction. I wasn't sure exactly what he was doing. Nobody was talking to him or anything, but a few people were looking at him. We left the area and started walking back on the sidewalk to my sister's house. The pace that my nephew and I were walking was pretty slow because he's only 4 and he didn't want me to carry him, so I was just going at his pace. When we made it about to the next street over, I noticed the clown again. And now it was just us and the clown. Nobody else was on this street. He was at the far opposite end of it, just slowly walking around. We did not have to go down this street, but we just had to cross it and walk past down the sidewalk basically. It was weird that we saw the clown, so we kept going, and I was hoping that he would not follow us or anything. By the time we made it past the street to another one, the clown was still walking towards us, and closer. I was starting to get a little concerned because it seemed weird. The way the clown was walking was like he was just wandering around. We continued down the sidewalk, and the clown ended up following us. We finally made it back to my sister's street, and now the clown was walking behind us only about 50 feet back. None of us said anything. I hurried up, and at this point picked up my nephew and carried him into the yard, and then we went inside. I looked back, and the clown was still walking towards us, but he was in the middle of the street. I felt much better after getting inside, though. After my nephew rejoined his parents and grandparents, I was curious, and I went to a front window. I looked out, and I saw that the clown was still there in the middle of the street. He was just standing there and looking in the direction of the house. It was so strange that I decided to go tell my sister and her husband about it. Her husband was out on the back patio grilling. When he got wind of it, he decided to go see for himself. Now, this was really weird. My sister's husband is a fairly big guy. He's over 6 feet tall and about 200 pounds. He's not a mean guy, but could look intimidating to some people. He walked out into the front yard, and the clown did not move. He asked the clown guy what he was doing, and the clown just waved at him, but did not move still. So my sister's husband walked to the end of the yard, now like 15 feet from the clown, and the clown guy still didn't move. My sister's husband was telling him to leave, and he was just ignoring him. I couldn't believe that the clown was staying there. Then my sister's husband got like right in his face. He still didn't move. My sister's husband put his hand around the clown's shoulder and started kind of leading him away. They walked like 5 feet, and then the clown randomly took off running, sprinting to the end of the street and out of sight. My sister's husband came back, shaking his head, and said that he thought the guy was crazy or something was wrong with him. We all went back inside, and thankfully that was the last we saw of that creepy clown. This happened just last year. It was the 4th of July, and I had a few people over at my place. My wife and I live in a place that has a backyard up against the little woods. We also have a patio back there, and it's a nice place to hang out. Some friends came over, and we had a fire. They brought their kids, and we had some sparklers that the kids were playing with. When it got late, everyone left, and my wife and I cleaned up and then went inside. Shortly before going to bed, though, I was passing by a back window. I noticed a light coming from what appeared to be just inside the woods. It looked like a sparkler. At first, I thought that maybe it was a neighbor, but the woods back there is pretty large and thick. The neighbor's backyard is not that close and not visible, so why would they be in our woods with a sparkler? This was very weird. I kept watching it. I couldn't tell who was holding the sparkler at all, but somebody definitely was. I kept watching for like 5 minutes, and it was moving slightly, but I just couldn't tell, so I decided to go outside. I walked over and opened the sliding glass door and then stepped out onto the patio. When I did, I saw the sparkler a little bit better. It then started moving. Whoever had it was walking in the woods fairly quickly and across the width of our backyard. I yelled at them asking who was out there, but got no response. They moved faster and then went out of my sight completely. It was weird, but I went back inside. They were 100% on our property and in our woods. For what reason, I didn't know. I looked out again before heading to bed and didn't see anything. So then I got ready for bed, went into the bedroom, and laid down to fall asleep. Our bedroom is at the back of the house and has a window that looks out to the backyard. As I was trying to fall asleep, I heard my wife say, "What is that?" I opened my eyes and looked up. In our window was a sparkler right outside of it. Somebody was holding it, no doubt, but I couldn't tell who. I got up and told my wife that this guy has been here before. I told her to stay there and I would go investigate. So I left the bedroom and then walked out of the room. I ran to the back door again, opened it, and left the house. By the time I got out, though, the only thing I saw was someone running off into the night. They had gotten rid of the sparkler, which had been put out, and was now laying on the ground below the window. I picked it up and took it in. It was the same sparklers we had, but I had put ours away. So did this person grab the sparklers from our party when it was going on? Or did he get them as we were cleaning up? Or did he bring his own sparklers? It's really bizarre, to be honest. After that, though, he never returned, whoever he was. I'm hoping that it was just some kid playing a prank, but I think he took things a little too far if that was the case. I live in a pretty populated neighborhood. Last year, I went to the fireworks at the city park nearby with some friends. Then I went back home and arrived at like 11 p.m. or so if I had to guess. It was fairly late, so I was pretty much just going to go right to bed. I went upstairs to my bedroom on the second floor. When I was doing this, I happened to glance out of a window. This overlooked part of the backyard. As I did, I saw this woman walking into the yard. Now, I had never seen her before, and some random person in your backyard is pretty weird, so I kept watching her and was hoping that she would leave. The woman then walked farther into my backyard and went out of my sight. She was heading for my back door area though. I moved and went to another window where I could see her. I watched her then go to the back door and try opening it. It was locked, thankfully. The thought occurred to me that perhaps the woman was drunk. Maybe she was at a 4th of July party and was trying to walk home or something. Probably she was just at the wrong house. She didn't really appear drunk the way she had been moving, but I was trying to be logical. So after trying the back door, she then knocked on a window. It appeared as though she was not going to leave, so I decided to let her know that she had to get off of my property. I walked downstairs. Just when I made it to the main floor though, I heard the sound of glass breaking. It was so startling that I instantly ran back up the stairs. Then I bolted from my room, went in, and locked the door. I heard footsteps downstairs, but it now sounded like there were 2 people. I heard a man's voice as well as a woman's, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. I locked my bedroom door and then heard the footsteps approaching the stairs area. Then I heard the man start to shout really loudly. I don't recall exactly what he said, but it was very threatening. It was basically that he knew somebody was home and I better show myself now. I'm not sure if he really knew that I was home from hearing me go upstairs or to my room, or if he was just saying that to see if anybody was home. But I wasn't going to show myself. I went to my window and scrambled to open it. Then I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. I knew that I had to leave the house. I didn't have a weapon or really anything to defend myself with. I never thought that my house would get broken into. The footsteps sounded like they were heading straight for my door, so I decided to jump out of the window. It was kind of a long drop, but it was doable. I hit the ground, rolled, and was overall fine, so I took off running. I went down the street until I felt safe and then called the cops. I waited for them, and when they arrived, they searched the house. Unfortunately, the man and woman criminal duo were gone. I gave the police the best information that I could, and they took evidence. I had several things stolen, but nothing too bad. I'm just glad that I was safe and I made it out of the house okay. That was a really scary experience.